first thing you notice when you step inside the Harvard exit isn't the silence. It's a feeling that someone has just stepped out of the room. The lobby still carries the shape of the old theater, the curve of the staircase, the soft echo of your footsteps on the floor, the faint scent of dust and old plaster. Light from the street filters through the windows in thin, pale stripes, catching the edges of picture frames and the banister that leads to the second floor. You move deeper inside. The air changes as you pass the threshold into what used to be the main auditorium. The room is empty now, stripped of seats and screen, but the space remembers its purpose. You can almost hear the soft rustle of coats, the quiet murmur of people settling in, the hush that falls just before the lights dim. A faint draft brushes past you. Not cold, just aware. Up the staircase, the second floor feels different, narrower, more intimate. The kind of place where conversations once lingered in corners and footsteps carried farther than they should have. The wallpaper is new, but the walls underneath are old, and they hold onto things. You pause at the balcony rail. This was where people felt it the most. A shift in the air, a presence settling into the seat beside them. A sense that someone was watching the screen long after the projector stopped. You take a few steps toward the old projection booth. The door's closed now, but the hallway leading to it feels charged, like someone has just walked ahead of you, just out of sight. And then there's the window, the one that faces Harvard Avenue, the one where people used to see a woman standing, looking out at the street. The one that still feels occupied, even when the room behind it is empty. You stand there for a moment listening. The building doesn't creak, it doesn't groan, it doesn't try to scare you. It just waits. Some places haunt loudly. The Harvard exit haunts like a memory, soft, persistent, and impossible to ignore once you've felt it. Tonight we're stepping into a Capitol Hill landmark where the past never fully left, and where the audience might still be here, waiting for the next show. The Harvard exit didn't begin its life as a theater. It began as a statement. In 1925, the Women's Century Club, a group of Seattle women dedicated to education, civic engagement, and the arts, built their clubhouse on the corner of Harvard and Roy. At the time, Capitol Hill was still growing into the neighborhood we know today, and the club wanted a space that reflected their ambitions, elegant, cultured, and unmistakably their own. For decades, the building served as a social and intellectual hub. Meetings, recitals, readings, community events, the space was alive with conversation and purpose. Everything changed in 1968. The club sold the building to two Seattle entrepreneurs who transformed the main floor into the Harvard Exit Theater. It quickly became one of the city's most beloved art house cinemas. The kind of place where you could watch foreign films, independent releases, and classics that never made it to the multiplexes. For nearly 50 years, the Harvard Exit was a Capitol Hill institution. In 2015, the theater closed its doors for the last time. The building was renovated and eventually became the Mexican consulate, a new chapter, but one that still respects the structure's elegance and character. A building with many lives tend to hold on to its memories. When you step inside the Harvard exit today, the first thing you notice is how much of the original structure still remains. The renovations have modernized the space, but the bones of the building, the parts that matter, are still exactly where they've always been. The lobby is the heart of it. You move into the space that once held the main auditorium. Again, the seats are gone, but the shape of the room is unmistakable. The walls still carry the acoustics of a theater, as if waiting for the next swell of music. Up the staircase, the atmosphere shifts. Second floor has always felt more intimate, more aware. The Women's Century Club used these rooms long before the theater era, and the energy reflects that. You walk toward the balcony. This was always the part of the building that felt the most alive and the most watched. And then there's the bathroom, tucked away at the end of the hall, just far enough from the main floor of the building that you have to step out of the rhythm to reach it. Even as a kid, you felt something different there. Not fear, not danger, just a quiet discomfort, like the room was paying attention. Back in the hallway, you continue toward the old projection booth. The door is closed now, but the air feels charged, like the room hasn't entirely let go of its purpose. Finally, you reach the window overlooking Harvard exit, the one where people used to see a woman standing up watching the street below. Some places change with time. The Harvard exit simply adds layers. The Harvard exit has never been known for loud hauntings. No slamming doors, no flying objects, no dramatic apparitions that send people running into the street. What people talk about here is quieter, more personal, more like the building is sharing space with you rather than trying to get your attention. And it starts with the balcony. For decades, staff and moviegoers reported the same thing, a feeling of someone settling into the seat beside them. Not a breeze, not the shift of an old chair, a presence, a weight, the unmistakable sense that someone has joined them in the dark. Projectionists felt it too. They'd be threading film through the machine, focusing on the glow of the lamp, when they'd suddenly become aware of someone standing just behind them. Close enough to feel, close enough to sense, but when they turned around, the booth was empty. It wasn't frightening, just undeniable. Then there's the woman in the window. People walking along Harvard Avenue would glance up and see her standing there, a figure in the upstairs room, looking out at the street. She never moved, she never waved, she never did anything that would make you think she was anything other than a person taking a quiet moment to watch the neighborhood. Except the room she stood in was locked and unoccupied, and had been for years. The sightings were so common that staff stopped reacting to them. She's just part of the building, one employee once said, like the staircase or the balcony light. Speaking of lights, the balcony light had a habit of turning on itself. Not every night, not on schedule, just often enough that people noticed. Just often enough that it felt intentional. And then there's the door. One of the old interior doors on the second floor, near the former meeting rooms, never seemed to stay closed. Staff would pull it shut at the end of the night, hear the latch click, and walk away, only to find it standing open again a few minutes later. Not wide open, not swinging dramatically, just open, as if someone had quietly slipped through after they left. They checked the hinges, the frame, the latch. Nothing was warped, nothing was loose, nothing explained it. It wasn't enough to scare anyone, but it was enough to make people glance over their shoulder when they walked past it. And then there's the upstairs bathroom. Even people who never believed in ghosts, people who worked here for years, people who laughed off every story, admitted that something about that room felt different. The air was heavier, the silence was sharper, the space felt aware. I want to step in here and kind of give my own 2 cents. This was one of my favorite theaters as a child. I loved going there. I'd always get excited about going to movies at this theater. We'd play around in the back hallways, the back stairways. But I do remember this bathroom. This bathroom, you'd be up there by yourself, but you always felt like somebody was there with you. It wasn't scary or anything, but it made you take notice. And anyway, on to it. But you felt it too, long before you ever thought about hauntings. A childhood discomfort that didn't have a name. Not fear, not danger, just the sense that you weren't entirely alone in the room. Buildings remember things, and some rooms remember more than others. But the most consistent experience at the Harvard exit isn't a sighting or a sound. It's a feeling, a soft shift in the air, a presence at your shoulder, the sense that someone is walking with you from room to room, not following, not watching, just kind of existing along with you. The Harvard exit doesn't haunt like a theater. It haunts more like a memory, a lingering presence that doesn't want attention. It just doesn't want to be forgotten. Some hauntings announce themselves. The Harvard exit isn't one of them. This building has lived too many lives to be loud about anything. Its presence is quieter, more like a companion than a warning. Places like this don't fade. They accumulate. Every conversation, every footstep, every moment of anticipation before a film begins. And maybe that's why the Harvard exit feels the way it does. Not haunting in the traditional sense, not restless, just present. A building that remembers the people who passed through it. A building that holds on to the echoes of its own history. Some places stay with you, and some places stay with themselves. The Harvard exit is both. I'm Kevin, and this has been Haunts of the Pacific Northwest. Thanks for walking with me through one of Capitol Hill's and my favorite hauntings, the Harvard exit. Next time, we're headed over to Magnolia, out toward the cliffs, the wind, and the long military history of Fort Lawton in Discovery Park. It's a place where the land remembers every chapter it's lived through, and where the echoes of the past still drift through the trees. And after that, we'll make our way back over here to north end of Capitol Hill to Volunteer Park, where the hauntings stretch across the museum, the conservatory, the water tower, and the quiet corners where memory lingers. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, some stories never really fade.